So effects of terrorist attacks on tourist flows to France. Is wine tourism a substitute? This is joint research with Haiyan, so it will be a joint presentation, and with Shun. So tourism is highly sensitive to disasters, several kinds of disasters, and at the same time the frequency of terrorism is increasing at the world level, so it is worth examining how terrorism affects tourism demand. And in the case of France, you have some graphs here. In the case of France, France has experienced recently a lot of casualties, as you see here with the 2015 attacks at the Bataclan Theater. And we see with the maps that most of the attacks recently took place in Paris, in the Paris area. So several research questions for us. The first one is quite classical in the literature about terrorism and tourism demand. What is the effect of these attacks on the inbound tourist flows to France? And second question, if we talk about wine tourism, can it be conceived as a substitute? It can be conceived as an example of rural tourism. Most of the attacks took place in the biggest city of France. So can we maybe think about wine tourism as a substitute for tourism, urban tourism? We adopt here a time series approach, which is a 2 stages approach. It refers to the 2-stage tourist budget allocation process. So first stage, international tourists choose their destination, France, not France. We use here a gravity model. And second stage, once they have chosen France, they decide the region that they will visit. And here we use a system of equation approach to see and to show that wine tourism serves as a substitute for urban tourism, especially after these recent terrorist attacks. So we know several things about this relationship between terrorism and tourism. We know that terrorism increases the perceived risk. We know that most of the tourists are risk adverse, even if they probably overestimate the likelihood of these kind of events. And given these elements, fear, risk adverse, and so on, they can cancel their travel plan, they can postpone, they can decide to travel to a safer destination. So we expect a direct negative effect. The number of tourists will probably decline. But we can also imagine some indirect effects, some contagious effect. If it's negative in France, it can be negative for some neighboring countries, maybe French-speaking countries, Belgium, Switzerland, maybe. But it can also be a positive effect if we consider substitution. Maybe people will travel to maybe neighboring destinations perceived as safer. So the indirect effect is not so obvious. Is it positive or negative? It's not so obvious. So what we don't know, we know a lot thanks to qualitative approaches, some recent quantitative approaches, but we probably need more rigorous and insightful quantitative analysis about this relationship between terrorism and tourism demand. The context of developed countries is understudied, so we provide an application to France, and this substitution effect is not completely validated. So it remains unknown whether substitutability is manifest between different forms of tourism within a single destination. That's the idea. Okay. Haiyan?
Okay, I will continue with the methodology. Do I need to put that on? Thank you. Right, okay. So basically, we studied the urban tourism against rural tourism. This actually table present the rural tourism data, which are divided into 7 regions within France. Each of these regions, actually, one of the main tourism activity will be one tourism. So that's the area regions that we are studying. And the models we use, Florine already described. Actually, this is a 2-stage study. The first stage, we look at the direct impact of terrorists on tourism arrivals to France in general. And we're using adjusted or modified gravity model, which include the size of the economies between economies of the destination and the source market, and also the distance between the source market and the destination being France, and also adjusted by including a few economic variables, including relative price of tourism products between source market and destination, adjusted by exchange rate, and also GDP and population, and between these 2 areas. The second stage, actually, we use we call it a compositional database equation system. It's not exactly the ideal demand system approach, but it's a system look at the shares of those tourist flows to these different regions, and to see how it changes because of the terrorist attack. And you can see TA 1 to 3 and TA, so this figure here represent attack without casualty, attack with 1 to 3 casualties, attack more than 3 casualties, which measure the severeness of the attack in the destination, to see how they affect the tourist arrivals or shares within these different destinations within France. So this is the database here. We collected time series data from January 2010 to October 2017. The data are monthly data published by French Institute for Economic Studies and Statistics. And also the monthly GDP, CPI, exchange rate are collected from Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. And the data on terrorist attack were collected from news report on the terrorist attack in France. So the information actually include the date, place, number of casualties and injuries, and also the brief descriptions of each attack. So these actually data are widely available, so it is easy to obtain. And the information are transcoded using dummy variables. Terror P means that attack happened in Paris. TA representing the arrived tourism terrorist attack or continuous variable terrorist attack in terms of numbers of casualties, which is a terror N. Result, actually, very quickly go through the result because time constraint. This actually first table represent the attacks happened in different sub-regions within France. These are mainly the wine destinations within France. And basically the information is that France suffered increasingly frequent terrorist attack from 2010 to 2017. And the Grand region of into France, which is Paris region, actually mostly happened in Paris, right? So these are the data. And this actually is the gravity model, adjusted or enhanced gravity model. As you can see, this you can look at the table here, but the main message we get here is the attack severity immediately, significantly, and negatively affect the total inbound tourism demand. So it's negative impact. And also, but no significant effect were found for attacked location. So that is the direct terrorist attack influence on tourism arrivals in France from different source market, right? Oh, sorry, what happened? Okay, the substitute. So I think that, oh yeah, this table actually is the compositional system equation result. It's a little bit messy, but what you need to see is the different attacks with different number of casualties, their influence on the market share of tourist arrivals in these different destinations within France. And all of those are actually rural destinations. Actually, if you want to look at the paper in great detail, we can send to you. But the message from this table is the terrorist attack generally have a significant positive influence on the market share of one destination. That means if there's a terrorist attack in Paris, and there will be disbursement of tourism from Paris to other destinations within France, right? So that's what we call a substitute influence. And also the mild attack, which means there's no casualty, zero casualty, and only increase the market share of Grand Est, which is Loire, right? Loire region. And also the wine tourism destination near Paris. But the medium-level terrorist attack with fewer than 3 casualties will have a positive influence on the market share of 4 regions, which means if the terrorist attack happened in Paris, and there will be substitute effect of tourism traveling to other rural destinations, which are mainly wine regions. But if the attack is severe, more than 3 casualties, then you have 4 wine tourism destinations as a substitute destinations. Actually, the effect will last a bit longer than, a bit shorter than the second medium-level attack. I think I only have 1 minute to go. So substitution effect. So basically, in mild terrorist attack, tourists prefer Grand Est and Pays de Loire. So, and also the medium attack, so the actual tourists traveling to these 4 regions. And also if it is severe attack, tourists traveling to these destinations instead. And overall, Pays de Loire was preferred for attack for all level of severity of terrorist attack. Conclusion quickly. First, terrorist attack, of course, generate a direct negative influence on the overall tourist arrival from different source market to France. And second, the wine tourism serve as a substitute for urban tourism after terrorist attacks, which I already explained, presented with the evidence. And practical implication basically is quite simple. If there is attack in the urban regions, and the benefit to the substitute destinations will be positive as a result. So developing wine tourism is a way of, with a solution of this terrorist attack to tourism in general in the country. So with that, conclude the paper. Thank you.